From vinyl music sounds to lively verbal go-arounds.
This is Into the Runout.
We're here for another episode of Into the Runout with my beautiful co-host, Tony. This is John.
And yeah. Hello, John.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
We're talking about another awesome album today.
Yes, we are.
But before we do that, what'd you do last week? Anything exciting?
Ooh. Well, I kept extremely busy with work. They had me on a different duty. I was covering a person's route all week. It was in a town in Kentucky about 30 minutes north of where I live. But it's good, though, because when I get the chance to go up to that town in Kentucky, there's a wonderful little barbecue place up there that serves this Kentucky sensation that I learned about, having lived down here in this part of the country that is celebrated by Kentuckians. It's a barbecue stew they call burgoo.
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 Is that French?
So I don't know. I have to research the origin on it, but imagine vegetable soup loaded with pulled pork and all seasoned up into a stew.
Wow.
It is delightfully righteous. In fact, when we meet up again in a not too distant time in the future, I'll just have to bring you and the wife and your companions some burgoo from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and let you partake of this amazing Kentucky tradition.
Yeah, well,
then you can stop in Hopkinsville on the way home and get some to take back to where you are.
Speaking of food, I ate a lot of food this past weekend.
Yeah, what were you up to?
It was Friday, actually. We went to a college football game. We saw the IU University team play Indiana State. It was a nail biter.
Oh, I heard it was. I heard from an Uber rider that it was a nail biter. All right.
if you call 73-0 a nail biter, but we did a lot of tailgating ahead of time, so we had your typical brats and hot dogs and assorted side dishes and desserts, cookies, whatever you can think of. Gorged ourselves before the game and then waddled our way up to our seats and tried to stay awake during the game.
Right.
But it was a good time. We don't get to go very often, and we were lucky to be invited by some friends of ours, so thank you for inviting us to have a little fun. And then Saturday we went to a barbecue competition down in Kentucky. I got to see my brother-in-law take and he's with his team's called Smoked on Maine, so we'll plug him on the show. He
Nice.
placed second in ribs
Woo!
and fourth in chicken, so
Woo!
that kind of put him in the grand champion rankings in his division.
Nice.
So he's moving on up in the ranks. I think he's in the top 50 now in the country.
Whoa!
So he's moving on up. But it was great. That was second time I think we got to go see him cook, but the first time in a couple of years, so that was fun. And we had a lot of leftover barbecue stuff to eat from his lot and his neighbors, so they gave us some ribs and some brisket and some chicken and just a lot of barbecue stuff, so having fun.
That's awesome. That's what life's all about.
Heck yeah. And eating.
Yes.
And listening to
Absolutely.
music. Listening to good music.
Yep. Which is what we're going to talk about here today.
Yep.
We're going to talk about a fantastic album in the history of rock music, and it comes from a band featuring 6 highly talented, very, very musically inclined individuals from the state of Kansas, and appropriately called Kansas. The album that we're going to talk about today is their follow-up to what was their breakout album, and that album, of course, is Point of No, KNOW, Point of No Return. And one of the previous podcasts I talked about, watching this incredible Kansas documentary called Miracles Out of Nowhere, where I really learned a lot about the band and how they came together and how they just kind of rode this steady wave of progression in their career, and then ultimately broke out with this magnificent breakout album. Not The Point of No Return, but an album called Leftoverture, which Kerry Livgren, the lead guitarist and obviously one of the founding members, really just became a writing juggernaut for the band and just came up with some remarkable lyrics and music. And it was the album that featured the hit song Carry On Wayward Son. It was the one that Kansas was waiting for. It was the one that Don Kirshner, who put his hope and resources into the band through CBS Records and the individuals that were a part of their creative network of promoters and producers and marketing group. They had all the confidence in the world that Kansas could be that band, but they were waiting in bated breath for that moment. And when Kerry came up with the musical concept for Point of No Return, or for Carry On Wayward Son, it was, the band knew they had something.
Yeah, I have to catch up on that documentary. It sounds amazing. And
Oh, it truly
and
is.
to catch up our younger listeners, as far as Carry On Wayward Son, if you're familiar with the super mega hit show Supernatural, Tony, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that show. I
A
think it
little
went on
bit to the name.
it went on for 19 seasons. Record-setting show, and huge fan base. Both my kids love that show, but that was a staple. Basically, their theme song was "Carry On Wayward Son" because they were both brothers, and they were kind of drifters and kind of fit the setting of the show. That show transcends generations. So to catch everybody up on it, that's the song we're talking about on that album. But now we're moving on to the epic album, the album we're featuring today, "Point of No Return."
Yep. Point of No Return. A
Woohoo!
very interesting
Yeah, look
album
at that.
cover.
Over the
You
edge.
know,
Point
over the
yeah,
edge.
you're at the point
Absolutely.
of no you can't turn that thing back now.
Yeah. And the I want to give you the benefit of the liner notes too. A very interesting, it carries on the theme of this, you've got this book that is supposed to be some form of a journal with a compass,
Mm.
and the liner notes that tell the band members and the remaining, song lyrics. So you get the chance to really see every single word and the attribute to who wrote the songs. Again, Kerry Livgren carrying a lot of the writing talent. Phil Ehart, as I read in a little neat account from the famous rock critic and personality David Wild, who was a big follower and fan and writer of Kansas back in its heyday, and has remained, kind of an expert on Kansas. He talked to Phil Ehart about this particular song, Point of No Return, and the album title. And Phil kind of said, the way it was written with no, it's like, he said, yeah, that'll mess with people's heads. And so, and of course, it opens up with, you know, the song Point of No Return. And just as the previous album, Chronicle, finished, you now have the band rolling right into a whole new beginning with this great song with, organs and piano and Steve Walsh's remarkable, incredible voice and the blended lyrics and the violin, and just, just a fabulous song to open up the album.
By the way, can you think of a better band to put a violin into? Like, who else
Yeah.
carried the violin into a rock band so well?
No. Oh, nobody better than the late Robbie Steinhardt. I mean, there were certainly individuals that played violin that may have appeared in a song here or there, but he truly was one of the vital components of that band. And I mean, there are tracks on the album where he just wails on that violin, and it's more than just a small little part. No, he's right in the midst of it. The follow-up song to Point of No Return on the album is a song called Paradox. And it starts out with this just booming organ solo that opens it right up. and you got Robbie's violin leading you right into the song with the variations of the keyboard and the organ and the synthesizer, and then right back into Steve Walsh's remarkable voice, taking us into this interesting lyrical piece that, never says the word paradox, but you're taken by the journey of the lyric. I mean, the writing that Kerry Livgren was putting forth on vinyl in this time of the band's history is nothing short of just landmark stunning.
I wish we could play the song on the show because it's in my head now, and I'm having a hard time paying attention to you because I'm I'm playing the song in my head. It's that much of
Yeah.
an impact. It's a great
Oh
song.
yeah, because then you get to the point where it's Robbie back in the point of the song where he's doing a violin solo in the midst of the place where you would usually have a guitar solo.
Yep.
And he's just, he was so doggone skilled and so doggone talented, and truly one of the vital components that made Kansas who they were.
Well, I think the violin did what the flute did for Jethro Tull.
Oh, absolutely.
Tongue twister.
Absolutely.
Jethro Tull.
Yeah. No, without a doubt.
And we had the luxury of seeing Kansas at a fest in Whiting, Indiana, and I don't remember when he passed, the violin player passed, but was he part of the band when we saw them play?
He was not. The reformed Kansas that we saw, which I had seen the previous year at the Homewood Fest, was Steve Walsh on lead vocal, Rich Williams at guitar, Phil Ehart on the drums, and at that time, Billy Greer was still in the band as the bass player. There was, I think there was a lady playing the violin, but yeah, because at that point, Kerry Livgren and Dave Hope were off in a different genre of music, and Robbie Steinhardt was doing just something separate from the band. He eventually did come back to the band later when they toured, like in the late 90s and into the 2000s, but somewhere along the way they parted ways again. And then eventually Steve Walsh finally retired. But as far as I know, to this day, I still believe in the variation of Kansas that's still out there. I believe Rich Williams and Phil Ehart are still performing as members of Kansas.
So moving on to Paradox, epic song. And then you move into The Spider, which then blends into Portrait. So your thoughts on those?
Yeah, the Spider is just this amazing little instrumental, and it's very keyboard driven, and it's also has some little bit of guitar work within it, some thundering drums in the midst of the album, but it's mostly very, very synthesizer keyboard based. And then it kind of rolls, the keyboard kind of goes and then it kind of segues into the fourth track on the album, the song that we both saw live at that Whiting Fest. And it's once again another one of those incredible lyrical songs, and it actually tells a story of a real life person. And of course, the song is talking about Mr. Albert Einstein, and the song is called Portrait He Knew.
Okay. Einstein knew a lot.
He did. He knew more than me and you.
I would
but
think
no
so.
one could see his view. But where was he going to?
Wait, let me write that down. That would make a good song.
Right?
Portrait. Yeah, as you're talking about Kansas, I can't help but bring up the band Styx, which is, kind of close to our hearts for being from Chicago.
Yeah.
Just this, I know they're not the same type of band, but the similarities of what they've gone through. I think they've, kind of been underlooked. They put themselves out there as a band, experimenting, and the talents there just didn't get the commercial success. And I think both bands are in the same category as far as I'm concerned. And I really think there's just hidden talent in the band Kansas, and this album is just the epiphany of what they were able to put together.
Yeah, they really, really did. And they were in a good state of momentum. Even
Yeah.
though behind the scenes there was a little friction in the making of the album because they were going from one studio to another, and
Okay.
things were a little adrift, and there was a moment that even Steve Walsh left the band.
Oh, really?
And so yeah,
Hmm.
so there was some tension and some friction happening within the framework of the band, but eventually they got things back together. And so if you look inside the liner notes, it says Kansas is still, because they were feeling a little bit of tension in the midst of the making of the album. But once they got it together, and once they established the studio they were going to be in, because the previous album was recorded down in Louisiana, a studio in the country, and they were attempting to duplicate that with Point of No Return. But as the story went, Stevie Wonder had apparently recorded there and kind of left the studio in disarray. So apparently Kansas wasn't quite able to, take advantage of the services of that studio. So they kind of switched over to another studio. So there was a lot of influx happening in the producing and the recording process, but didn't adversely affect the quality of what was happening
No.
as those songs unfolded.
I mean, I could imagine sometimes too much tension is not good, but I think a little tension is good because it prevents you
Yeah.
from being lazy and just lackadaisical and just going along with it. And sometimes little pressure, little time tension, little, back and forth animosity makes you think a little bit and brings the best out of you.
Yeah. And I think we explored that when we talked about Rumors. It was
Yep. Similar.
one of those.
Except
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know if the bands of Kansas were dating each other, but
no, no, no.
I don't know.
No, I know for sure Kerry Livgren was happily married, and
Okay.
you know, so yeah, and interestingly enough, his wife played a very significant part in one of the songs that we're going to be talking about as we get into side 2. But to close out side 1, there is this incredible epic of a song that was written to close out side 1. And interestingly enough, years later, when the Best of Kansas was re-released in the 2000s on CD, the band was able to get together and they were able to modify the initial 10-track greatest hit. And they basically removed the one song out of it that was absolutely not a Kansas song. And so they added Portrait He Knew and the song called Closet Chronicles, which tells this remarkable story of a king. And it's one of these epic songs that starts out with some organs and rolls into Steve Walsh singing the story. And then there's a point in the song where it goes into another segue and then transitions into this point of the song where Robbie Steinhardt breaks into this blistering, high-paced, furious violin solo that harkens back to Charlie Daniels and The Devil Goes Down to
Yeah.
Georgia. Maybe certainly not the same musical vein,
No.
but with the same kind of just absolute intensity.
He put down the
And
violin and picked up the fiddle on that one.
whoa, I'm telling you, there's no doubt about it. He was not fiddling around, folks. He was going after it.
So was
And
that
that
the
closes
last?
out side 1.
That was side one. Side one.
Yeah, yeah,
So while Tony's flipping over the record to side 2, we're going to talk about this week in music history. Okay, so we're going to start with October 2nd. In the year is 2017, we lost a big one that year in Mr. Tom Petty.
Oof.
That was a big loss.
That one hit home because just
Yeah.
the previous year my dad passed. And so
Mhm.
losing Tom, the following year, it was like, first it was Glenn Frey in 2016, and then it was Tom Petty in 2017. And you kind of felt like, another extended member of the family left us. I mean, I remember, liking Tom Petty as I got into my high school years, and his music just was again a part of that steady diet of music off the loop. Certainly, though, grateful because with Tom Petty's involvement in the Traveling Wilburys and ultimately the album Full Moon Fever that followed, which we will definitely focus on as for an album spotlight. That's one of those just incredible albums from start to finish that is nothing short of a musical landmark. And the fact that a certain musical magazine did not put that album in their top 500 is one of the biggest slap in the faces of all time snubs of great rock and roll albums. I mean, his success with the Heartbreakers up to that point had noteworthy accomplishments, no question about it, from the debut to the follow-up to the album that had, Woman in Love and The Waiting and, and the time where they did Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Stevie Nicks, and then into the latter part of the 80s with more decent songs. But I mean, Tom Petty found a whole new pocket of musical ingenuity with Jeff Lynne, the guiding light in the producing department, riding high on the momentum of the Wilburys. I mean, Won't Back Down, Free Fallin', Running Down a Dream, Facing a Crowd, You're So Bad, just on and on and on. Love is a Long Road. I mean, just an album that just had so many massive, amazing songs.
Well, I don't mind mentioning that magazine because Rolling Stone magazine is who we're talking about, and their top 500 every year. I think they change it and they update it. Gets worse and worse every year. They just keep putting in newer artists, which is fine, but haven't deserved the spots yet. And I think they're just trying to be hip and trying to bring in new fan base because their magazine has failed and it continues to fail. And they're trying to just make it more relevant. And if you look at that list and then you see, Sgt. Pepper's not even in the top 20, please. October 4th, 1970. The world of music lost one of its most electrifying talents. Can you guess who it is, Tony? Unfortunately, no, because that was last week.
That was last week.
This was
Janis?
a week later. Yeah, it was Janis. Shortly followed him. That was a bad year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did we talk about a Led Zeppelin song in a previous discussion? There was a Led Zeppelin song that I recently listened to. It may not have been a conversation we had, but there's a Led Zeppelin song out there with Robert Plant's Cutting Loose on. And I'm listening to it and I'm saying, oh my God, Janis Joplin could have sang this. Because he was singing it with the same gritty, just tearing it up in the style of the way Janis sang. And I don't know if that was deliberate on the part of Robert Plant. I have to find.
Was that a recent performance or an older performance?
No. This was like the song off the studio album.
Oh,
it was
okay.
Something back in one of their early albums,
like an outtake kind of thing.
What's that?
Like an outtake kind of thing, or
no? It was an actual song.
Okay.
It was actually on one of the albums, but the style of the way he was singing, it immediately made me think of Janis Joplin. That was a lady who, again, she tapped into a inner fire that very few singers, male or female, ever tapped into. I mean, the music that she laid down on vinyl, aside from the mainstream stuff, Me and Bobby McGee, great song, of course. Piece of My Heart, just a head shaker. But I mean, a woman who had so much. Often
duplicated but never replicated. Is that how it goes? Or often replicated, never duplicated? I hear her.
Often imitated but never duplicated. I mean,
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a fan of American Idol, and we don't watch it anymore in the house, but she has to be probably the top most duplicated artist on the show. People trying me and Bobby McGee probably mostly, but she had such a unique voice that it only came across when she sang it, obviously, because she had the emotion backing that. And when you try to imitate that, if you don't nail it, you just sound terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And Janis, I don't think ever did not nail it because
the emotion was behind it.
The emotion was
Yeah.
behind it. I mean, even on the last album, Pearl, I mean, you know, you hear a song like Move Over, and it's just, you know, it's got this great energy to it, and you can just hear her voice just cutting loose. And yeah, I mean, from a musical standpoint, no doubt one of the finest female vocalists and one of the finest singers, you know, unique singers. You
Yep.
know, you can debate the merits of how great the voice is on an artistic professional level, but in
Technical,
terms
right,
of
right.
technical, but in terms of gritty, real,
Yep.
authentic, expressive, raw, just oh, it just hits you right here, and you're just left, you know, wanting more.
Yeah, when you talk Janis Joplin on one end of the spectrum, and you have someone like, I don't know, Karen Carpenter on the other end,
Right?
two amazing. You can't come anywhere close to their vocals, but two
No.
completely different singers.
Yeah, two completely different singers, but yet when you hear each one of them in their own vein,
They're the best at what they do. You can't.
they're
You
the
can't beat
best
them.
at what they do, and you leave ruined.
Yep.
I mean, I can't hear a Karen Carpenter song, and not still be moved by the weight of the loss. I mean, these were women who put their musical soul out there, and they touched our lives, and we felt the weight of the loss. I didn't feel Janis as much because, of course, she died before I was born. But I mean, I don't remember where I was when I heard the news about Karen Carpenter, but I know that it affected me deeply because she had so much more to give. And now you listen to those songs today, and I mean, you talk about a real, accessible, authentic, just, you know, vulnerable voice that just expressed something so beautiful and wonderful. And, you know, it's life-changing.
October 5th, 1962, our boys the Beatles changed the musical landscape forever, and they released Love Me Do.
Ooh,
That's where it all began.
that's where it all began.
Love Me Do. And then nothing has been the same since.
No, and we've talked about the Beatles at length, and you know, great harmonica. John Lennon showed us that he was skilled in the harmonica department as well as in the rock and roll department. And Paul and Ringo and George, the Fab Four, they changed music forever. And you know, I look forward to tackling more of their individual albums and podcasts ahead, because they're a group of guys who I don't think we can get enough of.
Yep, and that's it for this week in music history. And now, for our next segment, Top Tracks of the Week.
Top tracks. Top tracks. Top tracks. Top tracks. Top tracks. Top tracks. Top tracks of the week.
Okay, top tracks of the week. I'm excited about our first song. It's a song called Something in Your Eyes. And this is by an artist by the name of Matt Jaffe. Kind of like Taffy, but spelled Jaffe. Off the album The Spirit Catches You. And he has almost 33,000 followers on Spotify. He's out of San Francisco. And he was discovered at the age, according to Spotify bios, discovered at the age of 16 years old by Jerry Harrison of the Talking Heads.
Wow.
We love the Talking Heads. He's opened for bands such as Wilco. We know Wilco very well. Blues Traveler, amazing band. And he's also written songs with, co-written songs with Tom Higginson of the Plain White Tees of recent fame. I've spoken with Matt a little bit on X/Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. a
Ah,
little bit in the messages, and he's a nice young guy. He still looks like he's 16 years old, when I look at his pictures, and I know I don't, but he's doing really well for himself, and I enjoy listening to his album, and I'm still going through the rest of his catalog, trying to catch up on everything he has to offer. So I look forward to talking with him a little bit more about his music. Doing very well. So
yeah.
thanks for
Well, hey,
put.
you're 16 at heart, John.
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate it. You as
My
well.
pleasure. Well, thank you, sir.
Next song. Oh, and by the way, Matt sounds a lot like and I wanted to tell this to him, but I didn't get a chance to yet, but I'll just put it out on here. He sounds a lot like a very young David Bowie, like in early
Whoa.
ages, early Ziggy Stardust kind of stuff. Cross
Wow.
between him and Matthew Sweet, if you're familiar with him from the
Oh, yeah, I
90s.
remember Matthew Sweet. Yeah.
So really unique stuff, and I think as he grows into his musical journey, he's going to be something to listen to. So
Oh,
definitely
very cool.
keep an ear out for Matt. Next up, we have a song called "All of That" and I believe it's pronounced ELIO, ELIO, off the album "Something in the Air," and they have just over 600,000 followers on Spotify. And guess where they're from?
Chicago?
Wales. This is our
Wales.
I don't know what's
Ah.
happening. Something in the water in Wales.
Something in the
I'm not
water
sure.
in Wales.
Something in the water.
Nice.
But anyways,
nice.
they or she. I'm not sure if it's a band. I apologize, but they're an indie pop band or artist out of Wales, as I said, with a little modern country splash, kind of Taylor Swiftish, but little indie music in there as well. So definitely pleasant to the ear. Next up is a song called "Even Angels Sometimes Fall" by a band called Huis. Huis. Album is called Neither in Heaven. 23,000 followers. They're out of Canada, and they sound like a mixture of a prog rock band that hired Joe Walsh to be their lead singer. So
Wow.
we love Joe Walsh and progressive rock, and it's kind of interesting to hear that combination in your head. But if you listen to Even Angels Sometimes Fall by Huis, you're going to hear that for sure. And I
Wow.
played that song probably 3-4 times in the last couple days, so definitely a great song.
I'll have to check that one out.
For sure. Next
Who
band.
doesn't
What's that?
like Joe Walsh?
No, I don't know a person that doesn't like Joe Walsh. Next.
But seriously, folks.
Seriously. We have a couple more songs here. Next one is "What I Really Need" by a band called RPWL. They have just over 100. Yeah, RPWL. They just have just over 100,000 followers. Now get this, just over 100,000 followers on Spotify, but they've been around for 23 years. So come on, Spotify listeners, get on board. They're out of Germany, and they actually started as a Pink Floyd cover band way back when, probably I'm assuming 23 years ago. This specific song, "What I Really Need," sounds like it came off the Division Bell album by Pink Floyd.
Oh,
So
wow.
later Pink Floyd, but that's a really great song. So definitely give that one a
Division Bell
listen
was a
to.
great album.
Yeah, underrated but great album.
Yeah,
for sure. Got that one on CD. And then our last song of the week is "How Do You Feel" by a band called Mystery, and they are out of Canada. It's a rock power ballad, and it's off their album "Lies and Butterflies." And this, I'm cheating a little bit because I usually do top tracks of this specific week, but this album is out of 2018, and I feel like they've gone under the radar, and I just found out about them, and it's by far my favorite band of the week. So give them a listen. Mystery. The song's called "How Do You Feel?" And that's it for top tracks of the week.
Top tracks of the week.
Okay, so Tony, flip the side of the record. We're on side 2 of Point of No Return. Moving on.
Yeah. I mean, the band gave us one heck of a side 1, and they don't let up to kick off side 2 we have this amazing track kicking off the second side. We get treated to a Robbie Steinhardt vocal contribution to kick off side 2, and it's a song called Lightning's Hand.
And I'm not familiar with
And
that song, Tony. I know the album well,
yeah,
but I'm not familiar with that song. So tell us about it.
it's amazing. It's got this organ thing going, and a magnificent, high energy, up tempo song. Robbie delivering it in his very kind of distinct, unique voice. I mean, that was what made Kansas unique. Steve Walsh, of course, with this paramount voice that carried the band to levels of musical greatness. But Robbie Steinhardt, no slouch of a vocal, and yeah, the song has a great guitar solo in it, and it has just this constant energy that just sweeps you off your feet. And
Electrifying energy.
Yeah, literally.
Lightning's hand.
Yeah, and there's this moment where there's a segue where he's kind of explaining what's going on, and you got the guitar going, just really a really creative and nifty arrangement that kind of follows right along with the lyric. The lyric and the music complement each other as it tells the story of this character, or some divine character who's guiding the lightning's hand. And
wasn't Thor, was it?
I don't know. Maybe they were thinking of
the god of thunder.
something Marvel in their minds. Because I mean
but if he was commanding the lightning's hand, then maybe it was Zeus.
Could have been too. That might have been maybe what Kerry, Livgren, and Steve Walsh were thinking of when they penned that lyric. But yeah, a very rocking song to kick off side 2, and then from there it rolls into the song that Kansas now historically is most known for.
Right.
And it was the song that surprised everybody, including Kerry, Livgren, who wrote it. And if you listen to the introduction, the little musical acoustic intro to Miracles Out of Nowhere, you hear this. Well, Kerry Livgren was sitting in his living room or studio at home, and he was doing what he described in the documentary as a simple exercise with his fingers on the acoustic guitar. And his wife came by and said, "Kerry, that's beautiful what you're playing there. You should record that." And Kerry kind of was taken aback because, up to that point, Kansas was only known for rock and roll anthems of the first degree. Right. And so when he approached the band and played them this track, they all looked at each other and said, "That is so right." There was no doubt.
The wife is right again.
The wife is right again.
Wives are always right.
But the song, of course, we're talking about is Dust in the Wind.
Yo, my boy, Blue. Do you get the reference?
Go ahead and tell the audience.
Have you ever seen the movie Old School?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It has Will Ferrell in it. Well, they feature that song in there. It's a comedy. It's you got to either like it or hate it kind of movie, but they feature that song in there, and I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it. But if you get the "You're my boy, Blue" reference, then you know what I'm talking about. And we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but when Kerry played the song, the guys in the band knew that this was going to be huge. And that it truly was that landmark song that would take Kansas to a whole nother stratosphere. And it's just Kerry and that beautiful acoustic guitar, Steve Walsh's indelible vocal performance, and Robbie Steinhardt's, just beautiful, elegant, eloquent violin solo. And
yeah, and you would have thought that that's when you would bring a violin into the band.
Right?
But he was there all along. And this
He was
song was
there
just
all
waiting
along.
for him.
Yeah, it really was, and it was certainly a I guess you could say at this point Kansas definitely reached the point of no return, with that song, because there was no going back after that one.
I still can't play that on guitar. I've tried, but I have fat sausage fingers, so that doesn't work. But I can belt it out in the car.
Right? Oh yeah. There was a time there was a time when my vocal range could have sang that, but now that I'm older and my voice is not as young as it once was, I sang Carry On Wayward Son about at karaoke once in public years ago, and I thought I did a halfway decent job with it, but it's Steve Walsh's vocal range is just sick. The man had just this amazing vocal range that was just nothing short of stunning.
No, Carry On Wayward Son definitely highlights that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think we need to go karaokeing someday.
Oh
I think
man,
that
that
would
would
be a
be
blast.
fun. Oh, that would be absolutely fun. That would
Yeah.
be a blast. I would love that. Because there's still a few songs out there I can still sing. I can still hold my own.
You just got to oil the pipes a little bit. Little
That's it.
practice, you'll be
That's it.
fine.
And learn to sing from the diaphragm, as I've learned. And I think far too often over the course of my life I wasn't using the diaphragm. So that's one of those little secrets that singers and actors and actresses learn in order to get full optimal performance of your vocal cords. So
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, one day we will. We'll have a blast doing that. So after the amazing contribution of Dust in the Wind, we roll into some tracks that kind of roll out the album. Sparks of the Tempest is another Robbie Steinhardt vocal contribution where Steve Walsh joins him in certain segments of the song. It has great arrangement, great guitar work, the drums. Again, Phil Ehart, one of those underrated elements of the band, because he's just that component, that glue that keeps the whole thing together from a percussion standpoint. And he's always there in time, not missing a beat, and having to really, really work hard with, 5 other guys who are just absolutely just nailing every point of every song. And then to the last 2 songs, 2 more Kerry Livgren contributions, Nobody's Home and Hopelessly Human. Just more of Kerry Livgren's journey as a songwriter. He definitely was experiencing it when he wrote very much of the second side of Leftoverture, of Magnum Opus and Cheyenne Anthem, and all those songs that just kept rolling and rolling, and lyrics that were just emerging, and just Kerry was in quite a point of discovery years before he kind of had his spiritual conversion, which changed the dynamic of Kansas in more of a inspirational direction, which led to Friction and ultimately the departure of Steve Walsh, and ultimately then the dissolving of the band, only to be reborn a few years later and then rolled into the rest of the 80s and the 90s, in which we saw them reformed and still sounding incredibly good. But this it was a good way to just kind of close out the album, because I mean, after giving the listener so many remarkably good songs, no knock on songs like Hopelessly Human and Nobody's Home, but just a solid album from start to finish, and a band that was still discovering how good they really, really were, and finally now getting the platform and the forum to be able to express it on vinyl, and a public that was waiting for a follow-up and more than satisfied with what was delivered into their hands later on that year when the album was ultimately released.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Into the Runout. We definitely enjoyed having you here. Please follow us once more again on all our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter X. There's how many are there? There's Instagram,
Spotify,
yeah,
Instagram,
if you want to list,
TikTok.
TikTok. Don't forget TikTok.
iHeart. I mean, it's like, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
And don't forget YouTube if you want to see,
Don't
like
forget
I said.
YouTube.
You can see
Yeah,
these
you
two
can
beautiful
actually-
mugs.
Yep. It's like to quote Jimi Hendrix, can you see me?
Can you see the real me?
Ah, there you go. The Who. Yes.
Mm.
Who are you?
So until next time. Until next time, we'll see you on side 2.
We will see you on side 2.
Where the music
the music-
fades.
This discussion begins.
We're falling down the stairs.
See you, folks.
We're ending it that way. I don't care.
That's awesome.
I don't care.
That's
I don't want it to look pretty. I want it to look like
No,
that.
I want it to look like that. That's fantastic. That's a great ending.
We got to own it sometimes.
Oh, without a doubt.